myself again. But it's the only...
Stand to attention. It's Friday night. It's the three amigos on NUFC Matters. I'm Steve Wraith, and joined by me other two amigos, Mitch and Steve Hasty. How are you, lads?
Good evening, lads. Yeah, good, man.
Yeah, well done to John from Jab. Another fantastic flyer for this week's show. And believe you me, the 6 I got last night for the next 6 weeks are absolutely hilarious. Like we're gonna. He's had some fun, mind. I've got to be honest, I'm definitely guilty of giving him a few ideas, but he comes up with the magic. So there is some absolute belters coming up. But yeah, we've started off with a laugh, but I think we all feel like going out in the garden and shouting to the heavens because they've done it again, haven't they? The Premier League, Mitch. What on earth are they thinking of when people are going through the worst, time of their lives with a pandemic? They come out with this ludicrous £14.95 per game to watch Premier League matches that aren't televised on normal television or on normal live Sky and BT Sport. What the hell are they thinking?
Where do we even begin with this? There's so much. This is going to be like peeling an onion and going through the layers, isn't it? I mean, on the absolute face of it, greed. It comes back to that again, where we've mentioned it time and time before on here. We've talked about football finances and the way things are headed at all levels of the game. And we've even seen rumblings from the Football League today as well. Some of the Football League clubs have been suddenly shouting up because they're saying, oh, hang on, there's going to be more money coming into the Premiership. We want a bit of that. It's a terrible way to treat fans. You couldn't actually pick a worse time. It's not like you could buy it and have all your mates chip in and have everybody around your house. Because you only allowed 6 from your bubble or whatever it is in the UK. I don't know where you're at with that at the minute. So it's not like, bearing in mind the big song and dance they've made about illegal streaming in the last 6 months. And they make a decision like this, where what's it going to do? Even if you just take a step back from it and take all the passion out of it, what's it going to do? And I'm telling you right now, you've just got to look on Twitter right now. IPTV's trending. Wonder why? And it's like, are you really that desperate? Are you really that greedy? I gather the vote was 19-1. Only Leicester voted against. Mm-hmm. And that's Leicester coming across as yet again as a well-run, community-minded club. I mean, admitted they're backed by effectively the Tiger family, and they don't need the money. But it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's even if it was just a £5, I think people would tolerate something like that. But 15 quid, and the other thing as well. It's not going to be your fans mainly of, Man City, Man United, the teams that usually get picked for the televised games. It's the fans of the smaller clubs that are going to be paying out. It's the fans of the middle ground clubs like us and in Everton and in West Ham and who want to watch the game back at home. I mean, just to give you the example, if you were, excuse the language, to subscribe to beIN Sports here in the UAE, you get every game, absolutely every game for the year for something like 700 dirhams, which is about 130 quid.
Yeah.
And that's every game televised. I think I'm going to be sitting in the pub with my phone pointed at the screen, just run it on Twitter, let everybody have a look at the match.
It is ridiculous. It's absolutely
and now
crazy.
Also another personal thing, messing around with the kickoff times means now our Man U game kicks off at 11 o'clock at night over here. And I've got mates in the Philippines. It's now 4 a.m. for them.
It's a major faux pas when there's another big sporting event that Newcastle-based fans will want to watch, and that's Lewis Ritson, Joe Laws, Tommy Ward, all boxing on Sky on the same night. at the same time. Yeah. So I mean, again, no thought processes has gone into this. Mitch, I'm going to ask you: Do you think there's going to be a U-turn on this? Because there has been so much anger, not just by Newcastle fans, but by fans across the board. There'll be somebody right now, unless it's already been done, will be preparing one of these online petitions, which is so common these days. I'm sure somebody will have already been starting that. Is it going to make a blind bit of difference?
I don't think so. They've shown they're pig-headed and they'll dig their heels in over issues which they think they're right in, and they won't U-turn. And you just got to look at the whole shenanigans with wanting to make effectively the Saudi state a government, a director of Newcastle United football, and not U-turning on that. They'll not U-turn on this. They've got a huge hole in their finances. They need a way to plug it. At the minute, they're the little boy with a finger in the dike. No pun intended. They're desperately trying to plug this hole. They're now paying off the Asian market by moving the kickoff times around, because that's going to make people happy. So they're finding it amazing and interesting ways to keep shooting themselves in the foot. No, I don't think they'll turn it around. You've got the CEO of Huddersfield claiming, that they should be supporting the Football League because of everything the Football League does for the top flight. And he's due 80 million in parachute payments over the next 2 years. And he's bleating for money. But why? Because he sees that money disappearing out the door. Because what's the first thing that they're going to turn around and do if they have got like a 200, 300 million hole in their finances? I can see special measures being done to trim parachute payments. And it's a hot mess. And they've just found an amazing way to make it even worse.
Steve,
we've got a Premiership which is spent billions nearly in this transfer window. Arsenal have laid people off. They've sacked their bloody mascot, for God's sakes. The guy in a bloody dinosaur suit who's been there for God knows how long. And they've voted for this. And there's just a total lack. It's tone deaf at best. Tone deaf at best. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Well, Steve, there's a lot of there is a lot of anticipation of a hasty rant here. I mean, what are the Premier League thinking? We shouldn't be surprised. These are the idiots who couldn't push a Newcastle United takeover through when there's nothing wrong with this particular takeover with PIF and the Saudis. There isn't anything wrong with it at all. But this is an incompetent organisation which has just proved its incompetency again. And let's not forget, this follows on from a meeting that they had around the table where they couldn't agree on how much money they gave the EFL, with some clubs turning around and saying, well, they've had over 150 million in transfer fees from us, so why should we be given anything? And why don't their owners get their hands in their pockets? And, some of the Premier League clubs are essentially saying, well, we'll agree on giving them 50 million. 50 million to all those teams in the EFL from a Premier League that's milked it for years. It's a disgrace.
It is, absolutely. Let's roll it back. This is an organisation, the Premier League, that lost the Asian market, Chinese payments. I think it was up this season alone was 200 million, and they replaced it with a deal that got them £10 million plus a share of pay-per-view, which they're now going to put on at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, yeah, loads of people are going to buy into that, aren't they, lads? Well done. That's your first mistake. Manchester United at 4 o'clock in the morning in China or something. Yes, we'll all fork out money for that. So they're on a share for that. Then you look at it and you've got let's take Newcastle United as an example. Mitch just said it was voted 19-1. The people at Newcastle United on the board, which is Lee Charnley, basically, he'll have known what the vote was going to be. He'll have known the strength of feeling. He'll have gauged it all. And if he'd had any iota of a brain just to try and keep the fans on side, he would have voted against it just to make it 18-2, because it was still going to go through anyway. But at least it would have given them that little bit of sort of, sort of face save, or we're with you lads, we're trying to do something, we've got this situation where we still haven't refunded you for your ticket money, and we're working through that, but we think this sort of thing, this pay-per-view would be the wrong way to go about it. The words, the gestures, and they didn't even do that, and that tells you a story, doesn't it? Somebody could argue that that's what Leicester have done because it was convenient for them. I suspect it was more the board at Leicester turning around and going, no, because we look after our fans. I think other clubs could have. The fact that it was 19-1, it's just a slap in the face for every single fan, including the fans of Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, but more importantly, the West Broms, the Burnleys, the Newcastles, the Evertons, who aren't going to be shown anyway, who are going to be hit for virtually every game. I think in the next 3 games that they're playing, none of them are on TV. That type of thing. And it's just like this organisation. I mean, we've used the word corrupt. We've heard that word bandied around on Twitter for an awful long time now, but it's mainly been driven towards the Newcastle United takeover and what's been going on there. But you look at it, and it's beyond corrupt. It's inept. It's totally inept. It's out of touch with everything that's, as Mitch says, has been going on in this country for the last 6 months since COVID hit them. And now they're showing their true colours with 5 letters: greed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is the big word, isn't it? It's greed. It's greed at the highest level. And from a football fan's perspective, especially a Newcastle fan, which we all are, season ticket money's still coming out. There's a lot of people paying a variety of fees to either Virgin or BT or whatever, and it's relentless, isn't it? The money that we all shell out, and normally under normal circumstances, we don't bat an eyelid at it. But do you think maybe the precedent's been set, Steve, with the Carabao Cup?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Carabao Cup. I mean, it was what, £10, and you got like one camera angle. It was basically looked like it'd been done by a bunch of YTS kids that had sent in with some cameras and said, see, there you go, there's £30. Get onto that and show us some, practice for your GCSE course or something like that, because the quality was shocking. The streaming was shocking. It just wasn't worth taking.
Didn't the commentary start 20 minutes late in one of our games as well?
Exactly.
Sounded like he'd left his sandwiches and a cup of tea in the bait room and just suddenly ran in and
exactly. That little bit of string and the 2 tin cans when they were talking to each other and all that type of thing. Then we had the situation in the Newport County game where I had a bloke in the background rabbiting on about, I don't know, his sandwiches or something to do with his wife or something like that. And you're just thinking, has everything just gone down the pan? Has everybody been affected in such a way that they think that everybody else will just accept any old rubbish? I mean, right the way through, from whether it's local councils, whether it's the government, whatever. I mean, it's just like disorganized. The whole country just seems to have suddenly turned into this disorganized mess right across. I went into town a couple of weeks ago, and you always keep to the left when you're walking. When you're walking, you keep left. You go into Eldon Square, you keep to the left. You get on the bus, you keep to the left. You walk down Northumberland Street, the only street in Britain, I bet, that you keep to the right. Who was the idiot that put that together? And it's stuff like that. The whole thing is just like, there's so many like indiscriminately stupid things that are just being thrown at you and accepted as the norm, and you're just expected to get on with it, And now we've got the situation where, obviously where most of us would have gone to watch the match would have been the pub at 8 o'clock Saturday. We can't even do that now. The pubs aren't even going to be open if what we're hearing about come Monday is anything to go by, where there's literally we're going to be on lockdown again. We're just getting the hang of going into a pub and socially distancing and having our temperature taken and waitress service as we're having the Irish Centre, and the strict protocols that are in place where when you go to the toilet, you've got to wear a mask, all of that. But we're putting up with it because we wanted to be out. And now, even that's gone because some idiot has decided to bring a boatload of students into Newcastle, fill Newcastle city centre up with 40,000 students, and then go, oh, where have they come from? Oh, all over the country. And within a fortnight, we're up into the 450, 500 mark with people with COVID.
We're getting slightly off track there, but you know what? I was saying this to somebody today. I believe that was deliberate. I believe this is a deliberate attempted test and herd immunity by the government. Let's push all the students in accommodation and let's see what happens. And the only deaths we've seen have been through recreational drugs. No student has died of a COVID-related incident in any of these halls of residence. And I think it's the government's next step in this country that, eventually they will say, look, these are the guidelines. This is where we're at. If you're obese, if you've got an underlying health condition, if you're over 65, you need to wear a mask. We suggest you don't go into big groups, blah, 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 blah. Take your chance. Take your chance. This is what's going to happen.
This leads you into getting into the football grounds, doesn't it? Which is what what everybody's looking for. All the work that was done by the football clubs, and that's what the Premier League's really been shouting about, and that's where they're knocked. But do you want to go back into a football ground? And whether they've thrown this 14.95 so we all get angry, and then they're hoping that they're putting pressure on the government to go, well, you know what? Oh yeah, everybody's angry about that. Tell you what, we'll give you the opportunity to go back into the ground again. But that's not going to happen at Newcastle when we're in the situation that we're going back into some sort of like local lockdown for at least a fortnight or 3 weeks or longer, because we don't know how long it's going to last. But it's all these little things. Are the Premier League playing games with the government? Is that why they're doing it? Do you think these sort of external pressures will come to bear? Or is that the game that they're playing to try and force the issue of getting people back into football grounds or not? I'm not too sure. I don't think they're clever enough, to be perfectly honest, because what we've seen in the past and what we've seen over the last 6 months, I think they're just blithering idiots, to be perfectly honest.
So anyone who's catching up. Anyone who's just catching up, Newcastle's next 4 games shape up like this. Manchester United at home, Saturday the 17th of October, an 8 o'clock kickoff now, which of course, as I've already mentioned, clashes with the Lewis Ritson fight if you're a boxing fan. That is now on Sky pay-per-view. So for you to watch that, if you're going to go the legal route, you have to pay $14.95. Wolves away, Sunday the 25th of October. That's a 4:30 p.m. kickoff. That's on Sky, but it's not pay-per-view. And then we have Everton, which is at home on Sunday, the 1st of November. That's a 2 o'clock kickoff, and that's on Sky. And again, that's non-pay-per-view. And then we're into Southampton away. Now, the day and the time and the kickoff time, haven't been confirmed for that. The live fixtures haven't been announced up to this point yet. So that could be pay-per-view or it could be non-pay-per-view. But I mean, this is something that's going to run and run and run. And like Steve said, Mitch, really, the club really could have won, a couple of brownie points with the fans by voting against this. But it's just not. It's just not in Lee Charnley's. It's just not in Lee Charnley's.
Very easily.
Brain.
This is where the club, over the years, particularly under Ashley, have never been smart when it comes to easy wins with the fans. They're just not smart, just not clever enough, because the lines of communication with the fans broke down to the point of entrenchment, and so they just do what they damn well want and damn the consequences. You've got some fans now effectively playing 3 times to see a game because they've got a season ticket that's still running. They've got a Sky subscription that's still running, which may have shown it on a normal match. And now they're being asked to pay for a 3rd time, or because it's been moved to pay-per-view. How ridiculous is that?
Absolutely
ludicrous. It just comes back to the fact that when football's in trouble, when a football club's in trouble, when a football league system is in trouble, who's the people that go back there to put their hands in their pockets to save it all? It's us. It's us idiots. It's the fans who resurrected Portsmouth twice. It's the fans who helped Leeds get back on their feet. And, it's the fans who now are scrambling to get buried back alive. It's the fans who will rise Phoenix clubs out of their ashes of left, right, and centre. And by God, if it goes the way it's going, like we've said on here for weeks, it's going to be more of it after Christmas.
Yeah, no, there will be. That's the big concern. Let's have a look at what people are saying tonight. Jeff, got me T-shirt. Good stuff, mate. Glad you like it. Anybody else wants one? There's limited sizes left now. There's been a good uptake on that, and I have got to post yours, Steve. I've got one in the office for you, so I must get yours out there. There you go, though, guys. If anybody wants one, NewcastleLegends.com, $14.99, and they are good quality. Got mine on myself, and we've got to get one out to Mitch across there as well. So big thanks to you, Jeff. I'm glad you like it. Somebody was asking, would we be talking about the NUFC elections? Yes, we will, and have we voted? Yeah, I've voted today. I'll put my vote in. Adam Beckett, he says, so much to talk about. Looking forward to this. Adam is running for election, so we're going to have Adam on as a guest tonight at 7 o'clock, and he's got an opportunity to tell you what he's going to be hoping to achieve if he gets voted in. Nathan Thomas says, bet none of or little of that £15 goes to help the lower league clubs who are floundering right now. Yep, you're 100% right. And I've seen a lot of these kind of messages today. I've cancelled my sports package and need to find an IPTV supplier. There's plenty on Facebook, apparently. Toonvan says, great point that, Steve. I never thought about the boxing. Yeah, and absolutely ludicrous that they haven't. Well, the fact that Sky haven't even thought of that really just doesn't make any sense at all. But so many people, John Justice Allen, already paying £25 a month for Sky. I mean, it is a joke. And as I say, when people are losing their jobs, that is the biggest joke. John's put a full thing in here. Already paying £25 a month for Sky, £25 for BT. Now they might not even show Newcastle in a month. And in theory, you could pay £59.80 extra if Newcastle are on once a week. Crazy. They have completely lost the plot. Tom Dixon says something which I've seen on social media many a time over this last few months. The Premier League is corrupt, he says. Alex G says, don't mention the IPTV. The Premier League wouldn't like that. All the games 1/10 of the cost. And Mr. Soze says, the dinosaurs been at Arsenal for over 65 million years. Yeah, you're right.
I thought Mesut Ozil was in that suit, to be perfectly honest, because I haven't seen him for a season now, have we?
That's a classic. Rich Story says, evening, lads. Looking forward to seeing a few of you at the Lee Clark evening. Just bought me tickets today. Just want a thank you to everybody who's done that, because obviously we're doing this for the food bank. We're obviously hoping that we'll be able to put this on in December, and it's the 4th of December. We're going for 80 tickets, and we had a wonderful gesture last night from a guy who lives across in Toronto, and he just bought 10 tickets, and he said that he wants that money to go to the food bank. He'd donate the 10 tickets to somebody who is less fortunate, and we do thank him for that. But yeah, all the tickets have nearly gone. Got about 30 left. I think it'll be a good night. Me and Lee Clark will be doing the talking. There'll be raffles and auctions, and a lot of the guys and girls who do the shows on NUFC Matters will be there. So again, www.newcastlelegends.com if you want to come along to that. And might as well give the sponsors a shout now. Darren Baldwin Funerals, local independent family business, 24-hour service, and a big shout out as well to QTech. Shop.co.uk, who do the snooker tables and pool tables, and have also been knocking up the t-shirts for us. Big thanks to you guys for supporting the StreamYard application this month. So let's talk takeover, Mitch. There has been a few little rumblings since we last sat together. None more so than this, which I know we've all talked about on social media, but 2 bottles of brown ale, some black and white champagne, and a loaf of bread cut into 80, 10, and 10. Yeah, what was your thoughts on that, Mitch?
It's either the cleverest troll on social media I've ever seen, or the most cryptic, obtuse hint from a very clever mind. I suspect the latter, personally. It's funny, they kind of can't win. When they were saying stuff quite openly, everybody was getting a bit agitated about you're saying too much and don't see anything. And then when they don't see anything, well, you need a statement. And it's sort of you can't really win on social media about it all. again, I mean, from what I'm being made aware of, there's definitely things rumbling on. I still stick to Christmas time as being the crux time for everything, which kind of makes sense, because if you were going to do anything, you'd want to come into it, have an ability to have an effect on the January window, sure. And so if there's a way to absolutely put pressure on in that intervening time through as many avenues as possible, not just the legal avenue, that's important. I think it's key that if you've got this legal team working on behalf of Ashley, that also tells we've got Ashley still aligned with the buyers, and that's super important, because he's got a track record of, as soon as he's not aligned with a buyer, you've kicked it in the touch and called them tire kickers. You know, Steve and I were sat chewing the fat over the whole BZG experience the other day at length, and when that deal fell apart, for all it was initially civilized, eventually Ashley started using the, did they really have the money? Were they really ever serious line with them? Which I know really upset me, that in particular. But it's clear that once he feels the deal's done, he's quite happy to stick the knife in, and there's still nothing. So that tells me a lot by his side.
Okay, Steve, your take on the photo that we saw this week, and is that a clever way of answering Newcastle fans? Because I do know that DeMarco has been contacted, hounded maybe by Newcastle fans for some kind of answer, some kind of information. He's clearly not going to be able to say anything. But what was your take on that?
Well, I like Neil. I thought it was very clever. I thought cryptic, clever, subliminal. All those words came to mind when I saw it. I had a real chuckle about it. I thought, because I knew what was going to happen. I think saw it, and within less than 20 seconds after I saw it, I think I clicked back on, clicked back on, and I think it was already up to 50 or 60 takes, and then next thing it was in the hundreds. It really, everybody went onto it. Then bread moved. It wasn't cans anymore; it was bread, and that was the hashtag that was flying around. And to be perfectly honest, it keeps with humour, doesn't it? It keeps my mind ticking over. It gives us an opportunity to laugh at ourselves and to laugh with each other, not at each other, about what's going on, because it kind of sort of softens the whole angst that we've had over the whole time. Because I think we're now all of the opinion that, when it's announced, it'll be announced properly and it'll be done in a certain way. It's not going to be something that's going to be leaked by a journalist or anything like that. It'll be done in the correct manner. And it's almost like until you hear it from the king's mouth, you're not going to believe it. So in that respect, I found it fascinating that the QC would put that out. I think, as Neil says, the important thing is that these people are still on board, obviously on board. Otherwise, we would have heard from Ashley and we would have heard from his team, and probably heard from them as well, that they felt as though it was a dead duck and they couldn't get any further with it. And I've always said from day one that the fact that there was a QC who is expertise is based in the Middle East, a woman, which goes an awful long way. Intelligence wise, and that she'll be an Arab speaker first and foremost, and that she can communicate with the powers that be over there, as well as communicating and doing it quite succinctly with the people here, and she'll be getting all of the opinion and making sure that everything from their point of view is being fed back to Mike Ashley, and he's hearing it directly. He's not hearing it third party. He's not hearing what possibly was what the things that people wanted him to hear. He's hearing it directly, and that alone means that it's still ticking on. It's still ticking on. I'd love
What's
to.
your take on that point on the screen there, Steve? Just from Andrew Malloy, he says, is it possible for the fan groups to give a vote of no confidence against the Premier League, and would it make any difference? He's just talking about what we're talking about.
You know, I don't think it makes any difference whether it's a fan groups or whether it's just fans in general. I'm sure that the Football Supporters Association will be all over this like a rash.
There's already a statement out, Steve.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
there's already a statement from the FSA out. I've seen it.
Rather than having lots of fan groups all firing off the same sort of statements, you know, something that comes from the FSA, and with the political backing that the FSA have, and the political support, you know, with some very, very, you know, very, very good politicians who love football and are deeply embedded, likes of Ian, who we have on the show tonight, for example, who can push those type of issues along. So that's where it'll come from. It'll not make any difference whether it was Fans United or whether it was NUFC or whether it was NUST, if they put out statements or they try to rally the troops. I think that the hounding on social media by individuals probably has more than enough clout and numbers to get those figures up into the hundreds of thousands when it comes to retweets and likes, or maybe we should be hounding Twitter and having dislikes as well that we can put on. I know you can do it on Facebook, but you know, I always find it strange that you're putting up, oh yeah, I like this, and what am I liking? I'm liking something that I don't like, you know, that type of thing. But you know where I'm coming from. But you know what? Getting back to the takeover, it means that this is something that will distract us from worrying about the takeover and allowing it again to just sort of roll through and come to whatever is the natural conclusion. And it does have a feeling that the natural conclusion will boil down to money. If I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, John Brown sent a great message in there. He says, Steve, every Eagles game and the whole of the BBL were free on YouTube last season, and they're trying to do it again this season. They're looking after the fans. I mean, Mitch, if one sport can do it, honestly, it really just drives me up the wall that the Premier League are even contemplating this. I know we're going backwards and forwards from takeover to that, but it's what everyone wants to talk about. And yeah, the fact that one sport can give up virtually their entire season for free, it's just ludicrous, isn't it?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Go bigger. Look at the NFL, and the NFL can run Game Pass and do it at a really good price. That means everybody can get access at a fair price to every game and highlights and ongoing extra content. It's not rocket science. So I don't understand why these need £15 a month. Oh, sorry, £15 a game. It's
£50 a game, yeah.
It's utterly ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. The numbers just, it comes back to greed. The numbers are about greed. How much can we squeeze out of these fans? And remember, they're actually not serving up the same product. It's a poorer product because there's no fans in the ground. Yeah.
Professional sport in this country is greedy. There is no question. Professional sport. Look at what happened middle of this week with the rugby, with Sale, who was still desperate to play a rugby game, a rugby match against Worcester, I think it was, when they had something like 22 members of their squad who had tested positive, and asked for time to still have the opportunity to pull a squad together to play a match. And you're thinking, just forfeit the game, just move on. But no, they wanted it because they were probably going to get some TV money for the game, or it was going to have some sort of impact on where they finished in the league. And they ended up with forfeiting the game with 24 hours to go, with no consideration towards their supporters or anything. And I think they forfeited at 20-0, and that means that it makes a big difference financially to where they ended up in the league. And that's the greed. No, none of them have got the moral ability or the moral attributes to stand up and go, nah, that's wrong. Don't. Yeah. We've caused this problem ourselves. we're out of it. That's it. None of them are willing to do it. They're clutching and grasping, and they always do. Look at the cricket was exactly the same. Where they ended up bringing, probably the only country that would come over to play test matches. They were so desperate to get it into grounds. I don't know how many people actually watched it on TV. Again, it was on Sky, so people like myself who don't have Sky wouldn't be able to watch it. Who maybe would have been interested in cricket, and I did get laughed at when I said cricket could just carry on playing regardless, because nobody ever went to watch county cricket anyway. And I know my friend Joe Cosgrove, he went, "Hang on a minute, Steve, there's some of us do go to watch county cricket, But it was the flippancy of where we were at as a nation, and where the clutching at straws with the greed element, without considering the position of other people and the dangers and such like you put in. And that's where we are with professional sport in this country, I'm afraid. It really is.
Mark's going to go back to teletext and wait for the screen to refresh. Chris says, all I want for Christmas is Ashley out. It's definitely got people rattled, this, and there's no surprise at all. Mitch, somebody made the point there, would you pay the money if Newcastle were challenging for something? But it's not about that, is it?
Not about that at all. Come on, we've proved time and time again. We turn up at the ground. We've not won anything domestically since the 50s. Mm-hmm. We've proved we pay money and turn up in numbers, whether that's in person or whether that's virtually. We've got a track record of doing that. I don't think that's a factor in it at all. I think the biggest factor for me is the way that the Premier League is just imposing something straight on for that. And it's the numbers seem plucked out of the air, and it feels like a gear comparison. I know somebody who was reasonably high up in North Tyneside Council, still is, and they were talking about how much they could push the Tyne Tunnel crossing fee up, and I actually had a statistical graph which basically said, look, we can push it up to this and it'll not affect the crossings too much. And so every time they bumped the price up, they just nudged it closer and closer and closer to the tip of the peak. And that feels like what the Premier League are doing, is they're saying, well, how much do you think we can get away with? Well, let's not make it over £15. Okay, £14.95, right, deal. It's the classic price at £9.99 and say it's under a tenner. I cannot stand when I say things like that. £14.95. Yeah, okay. It's because you want to say it's for just under £15. For less than £15 a game, you're getting this, and it's bullshit. It's just pure greed, and I keep coming back to that 1 5-letter word. It's greed. And it's selfish greed, because, as somebody rightly pointed out before, not a penny of that's going to hit the lower leagues.
No,
the Premier League aren't going to act as a bailout for the EFL, no matter how hard they bleat. The Premier League are going to watch the EFL combust, cherry pick the teams. We've already heard rumblings of a championship breakaway. Oh, there's a thing. Well, that would become effectively Premier League 2. You cherry pick the teams that would be compatible with the model for that, and then let the rest burn. Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, we heard it with Man City as well, didn't we? There was
let's put the B teams in. Yes,
yeah, put the B teams in. And you listen to it, and when he comes out with it, it sounds really logical. It's that. We've got young players. We've got young players that we want to have to get experience. And then he then goes on and says, and we've got German clubs who are stealing our young players because we can't play them. And you're going, stealing them? You got 11 or 12 million for Sancho when he left. You paid something like £350,000 for him. You stole him off somebody else before he came to you, and so on and so forth. And it rattles through all the time. And then they have the audacity to turn around and point the fingers at the Germans and the structure, and it just beggars belief, because what that is that's the first stage of, like, you know, it's like standing behind somebody with a stiletto and they're just poking it and poking it and poking it, and they're going, I'm really gonna push it in. I'm really gonna push it in. If you don't agree to it, you know, that they're pushing the knife into the back of the EFL clubs, because they want change that suits them, you know, and it's the top six. As always, as we've seen time and time again, it's the top six who are driving X, Y, and Z. You know, they're the ones who brought in the rule in the first place that they only had to pay a maximum of £450,000 if they stole a youngster from, like, a club. In terms of, like, the thing, I think it was £65,000 that you gave a lower league club if you took somebody from their academy, you know. And so all they did, because they changed that rule, because you used to be only able to be in an academy if it was within 100 miles, and then the club had the first option on you, and they got the big clubs changed it. Oh, well, it's for the benefit of football. It goes, no, it's for the benefit of your football club. It's for the benefit of your greed. It's for you to be able to build some sort of, like, hamster wheel of players that you'll then eventually throw out on the scrap heap as soon as you feel as though that they're not going to bring any money in for you, you know. But when you throw them out in the scrap heap, there's not going to be any of the lower league clubs for those players to go to if you keep this going.
Comes back to this, doesn't it, Steve? We see this, and we've said this, probably sounding like a broken record now, but the clubs always act in the interest of themselves. The self-interest of the club is that everybody works in football now. And yes, you're going to see this over and over and over again. And it's not even for the benefit of their league or their division, it's themselves. Yeah. And so while there is an elite or a cream set of clubs who have the financial clout to cherry pick kids out of other clubs' academies and things like that, and look at Chelsea with was it 24 players out on loan now, and they're making millions just off that. I mean, you look at the Loftus-Cheek deal. Not only are Fulham paying them a fee and paying most of the wages, they pay Chelsea 50 grand every time he doesn't play for them.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about Joe Linton having a clause in his contract possibly to play every game. Well, there is a contract whereby they're penalised if he doesn't play every game. That's ridiculous. What does that serve? The setup they have only serves Chelsea Football Club. It's not serving the bigger game. If the bigger game was being served by all this, how come our England under-21s drew 3-3 with Andorra the other day?
Exactly.
Andorra, it's got a smaller population than Gateshead. You know, if these clubs and their youth team were serving the good of the bigger good of the game, that should have been 20 out. That should have been a proper thumping. It's not. And so you can see what they're doing is they're feathering their own nests all across the board. Yeah. Hence why you've got, again, what else we would CEO today saying, I want more money, I'm worried about finances, and he's got 80 bloody million rolling in soon, you know, and so what are the other clubs in the Championship going to be like? And then what's going to go on in League One? We've seen that last season, and we've talked about that at length already, you know.
But we also had that situation, Neil, don't we, that we talked about just a few weeks ago, where you've got clubs in Division 1 and Division 2 where their owners have always lived on the back of, I'm all right, I'm okay, it's not going to affect
Won't happen to me. Won't happen to me.
They could have supported Bury, and they could have told the Football League, no, don't throw them out. Just put them into the one relegation. Allow them to have the opportunity of a Phoenix club that doesn't have to come through 8 leagues to get back in. Give them the opportunity to come back once, because what's happened to them is bad. But no, they all went, chuck them out. That's a shame, but you're gone. But now, when there's the risk of it happening to them all, they suddenly merge together, and it's like, oh, this is terrible. But this is the two-facedness. This is the I'm all right, Jack attitude that those clubs have had for years and years in that division. And this is how they've had people like the guys who took over from Blackpool who can come in and fleece them and get away with it. This is how the guy in Bury got in and fleeced them. This is how other clubs all the way down, Wigan, where it was only 4 months ago that the EFL turned around and said the guy who was taking over at Wigan was a decent person. And next thing you know, within 4 weeks, he sold it to someone, and it's wrapped up in all sorts. And now that they've gone out and they seem to have found some mystery Spanish bloke who's now going to be buying Wigan, you know? And you're thinking, what is going on? What is going on? And it's absolutely shocking governance by the EFL, and we're also seeing shocking governance by the Premier League. We're seeing it on a level, but it across the board, it's those executives and the powers that are given to them by the football clubs to run it, basically the way the football clubs wanted to be run, by the way. It's not like the executives make all the decisions. They make the decisions at the behest of the clubs anyway, because that's what it is. They're just there to basically rubber stamp the decisions and keep the money rolling in terms of the Premier League.
Yeah, Connor Powell's just making the point about the boxing. Yeah, they do charge pay-per-view. Somebody made the point earlier that boxing, of course, you get a full undercard and you get the main events. I think it was Nathan, he made that point quite rightly earlier on. You're getting hours and hours of entertainment. With football, of course, you're only getting 90 minutes. Nicholas, of course, likes to look back in history, and God, I was in most of those bars, mate, and I started my very first door job at Masters. So you're right there, mate. Hashtag happy times. I hope you're well, mate, and the family. Where's Ian Mearns tonight? He has got a job to do. We don't get him on every week. Sometimes it's nice because it's the three Amigos. It's nice just to have the three Amigos for a little bit of time. And we did promise Adam, who's obviously running for a position on the NUST board, that he could have a little slot tonight. And we want to champion him. We think he'd be a good representative. So going to get a chance to ask him a few questions and put a few things to him. So if you've got any questions about NUST, why he's running, what he hopes to achieve, etc., start thinking about them and get them in. Life goals are saying, any updates on Amanda's Barclays case? We're led to believe that's obviously going to be the back end of this month. We will hear something about that. Alex says, I see the T word is back. The delay is going to make it all the more sweeter. How right you are. If we do get to that stage, it will be all the sweeter. And let's just see what the next few months bring. John O says, how did you three first meet? There's a question and a half.
That's a good question.
Well, it is, yeah. I mean, how did you two meet?
First NUST meeting.
Aye.
That you were at as well, Steve.
That's how we met them.
In the Irish Centre. That was that day. I think it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday after the Hull City game.
Aye.
Where Michael Martin and Mark Jensen arranged a meeting. Got Bill Corcoran, who I think they barely knew at the time. I think Michael might have known him, and asked if we could have the room. And we went into the concert room in the Irish Centre, and I think the place was absolutely chocker. And Michael gave a great and said some great words and explained what he thought we should be doing, and asked for volunteers at the end of the meeting to come up. Michael produced a list of volunteers who were willing to put their head above the parapet, and I think the following week, those people on the list, Michael emailed them and asked them if they would like to turn up and chew the fat over what we could actually do and what we could bring to the table. I turned up because I was angry at what had happened with Kevin Keegan in the sacking, and I had produced the Wanted for Crimes Against Newcastle United banner with my pal Dave Tubman, which ended up on Sky TV, BBC. It even made photographs in the China newspapers. So I said, look, I can produce vinyl banners and stuff like that. And other people came with various other skills. Colin Whittle was there, who now helps the food bank. Bill Corcoran, Tom Lynch, Chris Betts, Peter Whitfield. Aye. Loads of lads who we'd never seen before, who became the forerunner of NUST as Newcastle United Supporters Club, and we ran that for 2 seasons, I think. And they were the lads. They were all the lads that we've mentioned before who gate crashed the original. What wasn't called the fans' forum, it was called the fans' liaison meeting that the club had now and again.
That was fun.
And I think that's when I saw Mitch at his best. I didn't really know Mitch before that. We'd chatted around the table and we'd been for beers in the bodega and stuff like that. But then when he got in front of Derek Lambias and made Derek go red and angry, then I knew that Mitch was the sort of lad that you wanted to have.
Good old Derek.
Yeah, I mean,
God, I miss him.
I'd been writing for True Faith. That was how. So I knew a lot of the lads had connected to True Faith reasonably well. So when we do the retro show, with a lot of the trips that I talk about will have been done with some of those lads. Some of the lads that Steve's just mentioned. And I've always been a bit of a gobshite, as everybody knows, and so I kind of stopped myself. So when you get into a situation like that, it's hard not to get the passion and not to get railed up about it.
Yeah.
And then obviously, we knew of you. We spoke at that first NUFC meeting, Steve. I don't know if you remember. There's no reason why you should, to be fair. And I obviously knew of you, but then getting to know you better, it was. I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did, mate.
Yeah, we used to bump into you quite regularly in the Strawberry, Steve, when you were selling the fanzines as well.
That's right, back in the day.
We used to have a quick chat beforehand, and the lads would all buy a fanzine off you. And you always had a handful of fanzines. You were always in a hurry because you wanted to get them all sold. And we were holding you back, and you're going, "I've got to go. I've got 10 pubs to go to, lads. I'm away. And off you would tunnel, And I mean, so everybody knew of you, and we'd all seen you around, And I think the friendship kind of just blossomed over the years, And it's one of those things that we've got to remember what brought we together, and it was Newcastle United.
Yeah,
that's the key. It was Newcastle United.
Yeah.
But, do you know that's the thing that frustrates me sometimes when I see our fan base and how Ashley's found an amazing way to turn it into divide and conquer. We lose sight sometimes that we actually all want the same thing.
Yeah.
We all want the same thing. But as ever, with Newcastle fans, it's where I get that herding cats phrase from. We discovered it very much when we were doing the NUFC, going to NUST roadshows. And I think that's why things like travel clubs never really lasted and worked very well in our club. Everybody's so individual and so independent-minded. We all want to do the same thing, but we want to do it in our own way, and we want to feel like we possess that. And I think that's something probably in the next part of the show, and we're talking about NUST. Anybody getting involved with NUST, I would heartily suggest use your ears more than anything else, and get out and listen and understand what your members want.
Yeah, I think.
And sometimes,
Mitch, what was interesting was that at the time that NUSC was set up, there'd been a couple of fan groups knocking around over the years. The Newcastle United supporters groups that some of the great lads who eventually formed the Magpie group, the original Magpie group, had done. But what surprised us, I think, very, very quickly was that Sunderland had something like 50 or 60 supporters clubs. And supporters club out of each village in Durham that had their own bus that took people to the games and stuff like that. And Newcastle was an independent thing. It was like you either arranged your own bus or you arranged your own transport, or you went from that little hut in Strawberry Place, in the Haymarket, and you went and booked onto the bus, or it was an Armstrong Galley, and we didn't have that connection. And even recently, when we had the derbies against Sunderland, and the police put meetings together between NUSC, NUST, Fans United, the Sunderland supporters groups, and we would turn up, and there'd be 3 or 4 Newcastle fans, and it'd be like 15 or 16 different Sunderland groups who had turned up because they all wanted to have their input in and chat to the police about what the security arrangements were going to be for them coming up to Newcastle games or vice versa. And it's always fascinated and surprised me how well organised they were in terms of their fan groups. But also, I mean, that none of them, I don't think, spoke to each other. Let's be perfectly honest. They were all village groups, and it was all coming out of a social club in Merton or a social club in Dordon or wherever, but they all were there. They were organised in that respect, and we never had it. And it's that independent free spirit that Newcastle have always had, And I remember I remember years ago, and Steve, some of the books that you've been involved in and writing, and some of the photographs I've seen where the lads would go out on an away game and they were all dressed the same, or they all had a certain style of tracksuit. And you related a story a couple of months ago about them all getting beaten up because they all were dressed the same. And I remember talking to somebody in London it was at an FSA, what was the Football Supporters Federation do in 2010, where I got up and I was invited to talk about Newcastle United and the trials and tribulations we were having with Mike Ashley, which fascinated the Glasgow Rangers fans, who then eventually got back in touch and said, "Can you come up and do a talk with us, because we don't want to get involved in any of this shenanigans." The previous talk I had been someone from Barcelona talking about fan groups, and these guys in London who I was sitting with, and they said we could always spot the Newcastle fans back in the 70s and late 70s. We could always spot a Newcastle fan from miles away, because he came in his overalls, he had his dirty jeans and his work boots, and basically got out of work on a Friday night, gone straight on the drink, and then got straight onto the train and carried on drinking. And he's still in his work club, and they said, "We could spot you in your donkey jackets and that a mile away," because they were all trendy. They were either punks or they were the mods or they were whatever, and they were all into the trendy gear. And the Liverpool fans were in their track boots, and the Man United fans had their way of dressing and all that. But we didn't have that in that particular time, because we were free spirits. That were, we didn't have like a code of conduct or a way to dress or anything like that. And in the same way as we couldn't tell people that they needed to be in this fan group or they need to be doing that, because the first thing, and we spotted, and it came out the road shows, didn't it, Neil, when we turned and said, we all want to do this, and we got get stuffed, we do that. And then you go to the next roadshow, and it was we do the other and the other. And every time you try to bring the thing together, we got.
If you went in and said, "We've got this idea and we want to do this," you'd get one or two answers, and one of them would end in off, and the other one would be why.
Yeah,
it's like, and you'd then have to spend time getting them to buy in, and then they'd often walk away saying, "Yeah, that's a great idea," but because they feel that they'd taken possession of it. It's
Karen,
like...
Go on, Mitch.
No, I was like saying, it's like, again, these easy wins the club could do by talking to the fans in the same way.
Yeah.
It's very rarely the decisions they make, it's the way they do them. Like, for example, and again, Steve and I, funny enough, were discussing this the other night about the renaming of the ground. There would have been a totally easy way to get fans on board with that, and they just totally ran roughshod over it and created holy hell because they had a guy turn up with a crowbar at 8 a.m. and hadn't even told the press officer. It's just...
Crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. Karen Choke says, "Can I have a vote between the three of you? Takeover will happen, yes or no?" Yes from me.
Yeah.
And it's a yes from me.
Oh, there we go. 3 yeses. You're through to the next round.
Yeah, we are.
And one person we hope gets through to the next round is Adam. Welcome, mate. How are you?
Evening. How's everybody doing?
Good little link there,
Adam.
you see. Good little link. I've done this before.
That's a great
Very
segue.
slick, Steve. Very slick.
Adam, well, welcome to the show. Obviously, you're part of the international crew who will get on to take us through a lot of the games on Match Day Live, and you've been part of the worldwide story, really, on NUFC matters. So great to have you on. Absolutely fantastic. And you've put your head above the parapet. You put yourself forward for Newcastle United Supporters Trust. So first of all, tell us why you've decided to do it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, amazingly today has sort of been the perfect example of why it's so important that fans go the extra step to get involved in their clubs. I mean, I've just been thinking all day about how football used to be about the fans. It used to be about going to the stadium, going to the game, or watching it at home with your kids. It used to be a fan-based sport. And actually, Mitch said something earlier that I thought was really, really important. So important that I wrote it down. He said it's always the fans that the clubs go back to first when they need help. It's always us that are asked to put our hands in our pockets. And this is why I wanted to run for the trust. I really felt like it was time to take the 25 years or so of passion that I've had for Newcastle and put it into real action. I just want to say, to this group alone, to the NUFC Matters community, just getting to know you guys has been a fantastic step for me. It's been an amazing outlet that I've been able to utilize to sort of vent my frustration, meet people that are in a similar position to me. And I really feel like I want to sort of represent not only this community, but the sort of broader Newcastle United community when it comes to interacting with the club. So that's why I really wanted to run. But again, today has just been sort of the latest and greatest example of why it's so important that fans get involved. And another thing that Mitch said that really stood out to me, and he repeated it just now, is that the club has become so bad at getting the easy win, right? They can't even get an easy win anymore with the fans. And we're not asking too much of them, in my opinion. We're not asking them for a lot. We're just asking them for a little bit of respect, a little bit of appreciation. And today would have been the perfect opportunity, right? They could have voted no. I think Steve Hasty made the same point, that they already knew it was going to be a blowout, right? It was going to be 19-1. Would have been so easy for them to say, we're going to vote no. Oh, and by the way, on the same day, we're going to release a statement about refunds on season tickets. 2 easy statements, and you would have had a huge bonus for the fans today, and it really would have started to sort of turn the tide on the conversation that we're all having about the club and how poorly it's run. So again, that was a bit of a rambling answer, but today is just such a perfect example of why we all need to go a little bit further. And this is how I'm hoping to do it. I'm hoping to do it by getting on the Supporters Trust board and really sort of amplifying all of our voices to that board.
Great stuff. B. Taylor, yes, we have already covered the 1495 thing. So, watch the first hour. We covered that in depth. There's a lot of people have already voted for you, Adam, which is great news. And the voting started, I think it was today, and I think it's over the weekend, if I'm right. So anyone can vote now. You can choose to vote for one person, up to 5. As I say, I've cast my vote already, and I'm sure many other people have. I'm going to read out, obviously, the other candidates' names, just to be fair, who are running in the election. And basically, you've got Jonathan Lane, who is running. You have Alex Nicholson. You have Jeffrey Lindahl. You have Mark Corby, who's a good friend of the show. He runs a fantastic Twitter and Facebook account. You've got Stephen Harrop. You have Charlotte Robson. You have Daniel Olsen, who many of you will know. Thomas Concannon, who is already on the board but is running again, who stepped down, is running again. He's a big player in the FSA. He is running again for election. And obviously we have Adam, and we have Linda Bush. We have Jonathan Drape coming, and we have, that's it. Yeah, so that's your 11. There's 11 people put forward. I think it was 14 got through, 3 decided to withdraw. Adam's statement, though, and I will read that so you can get a feel for what his mission statement was that he put in, was the work that the NUST has done over the last few years has been outstanding. Most members feel more connected as a community and more engaged than ever with the club we all love. Whether it's representing fans in front of the club's leadership or lobbying the Premier League for support on season ticket returns, the Trust has been there to amplify our voices across all platforms. I'd very much like to join the Trust's board to enhance their work. I think more can be done to interact with our fan base across the world and together move forward and towards a better fan experience. I think I'd make a good addition to the board because I want to represent a broad spectrum of supporters. I believe that not only local supporters but also international supporters deserve more say in the Trust and in how we interact with the club. Newcastle has a global supporter base, and that deserves greater recognition within the Trust. I've been a Newcastle fan for 25 years, and like you, I've seen our club run into the ground by the current club owner. I think that the club owes the fans far more than they currently give us credit for, and I want to grow the engagement with the club to make sure that our voices continue to be heard. I'm incredibly passionate about our fan base. We've got some of the best supporters in the world, and we deserve to have a club that matches that top-class support. We have a broad community of fans, whether online, locally, or globally. Our supporters are dedicated, knowledgeable, and patient. We've been through the best of times and come through the worst of times together. Our fan base can have a powerful voice, especially when we are all united behind a cause. There's no doubt in my mind that the Premier League wouldn't have been pressed so hard to talk publicly about the takeover had it not been for the efforts of the Trust and fans all over the UK and across the world lobbying members of Parliament and news outlets to pick up the lack of transparency and honesty the league showed us fans. Newcastle United fans showed what a united group of people can do when they try. Lastly, I feel that the local community in Newcastle needs the Trust's help and support more than ever. The effect of coronavirus has devastated local food banks and charities, and I believe that the Trust can play a vital role in helping those vital services through these difficult times. I want to be part of the growing interaction that the NUFC has with local companies. And that's it. So very good, very, straight to the point. Mitch, come to you first, mate. You've been involved with the Trust, as me, you and Steve have all been involved with the Trust. First of all, Adam's mission statement, what did you make of it, and what do you make of what he said to start with?
I'll tell you the thing that strikes home probably more with me than it ever has. I mean, I'm now into my 9th year of being expat, and the expat exporting experience is different, and I think it's taken me to move away to properly understand it and get it. That sometimes the further away you are, the more you look to Newcastle United as the thing that anchors you back home. Probably more so than when you're in Newcastle. You want that club to be representative of you, and you represent it when you're abroad. And I think when we formed the Trust, I think it would have been quite difficult for an expat fan to get directly involved with a board. And as we've moved into sort of, as the technology's improved and we're able to do, we're sat in 3 different time zones having a chin wag. It's easy now. It's this easy. And it's interesting to see how many expat fans have actually applied to get involved with the Trust. And so for me, I think that will give probably a better balanced and more representative voice of the fan base as a whole than at the inception of the Trust, when, let's be honest, it was just us old regular gobshites that you heard from week in, week out, either in the Chronicle or in the fanzines or what have you. Because, Steve, you used the phrase again, another one I like about sticking your head above the parapet. It takes balls to do that. Mm-hmm. We do it because we've done it for years. I mean, I've had my head above the parapet so much I've had all my brains shot out and I don't care anymore. And so I can be criticised and take everything that's chucked at us. It's water off a duck's back. But it is very brave to stand up and be counted. And I take my hat off to anybody who's prepared to do that, because it can be nerve-wracking. As I say, for us these days, it's easy. Give me a microphone and I'll just talk. And I've got to be told to shut up sometimes. Regularly when I do stints on Dubai Radio, to be fair. But yeah, and that's what stands out to me in this election, is that the expat voice will be stronger, I think, at the end of this, because I think quite a few of those expat fans will get voted on, because when you look at the statements and look at the intentions they have, because we in far-flung places look at Newcastle to be that shining beacon, we want to try and make it shine that bit more. We want to be the pledge that polishes it off, So that's my initial thoughts on it all.
Okay, Steve, your view on Adam's opening statement there, and the NUST and the election process and that.
An excellent statement. Very much showed the passion that Adam has for Newcastle United, and that's the key. We've all got passion, but when you've got the passion and you want to do something with that passion, and you want to really make a difference, and I know that's a much used phrase in industry and commerce, make a difference, get out there and make a difference. And that's what Adam wants to do. That's what his statement tells me anyway. And I think it's quite refreshing, as Neil says, that we've got expats who can see it from overseas, can probably have a different dimension to what they're looking at and what's going on. I've I've chatted to Adam a couple of times just via DMs, just trying to get a flavour of what Adam's about and where he's coming from, and understanding that it's not going to be easy being an expat in getting your voice heard, but at the same time, because he's got that passion, it's something that he can use to his advantage, you know, and that advantage comes from the fact that, surprisingly, there's not that many candidates for an organisation with 14,000 members, and not many candidates that are not from or not associated with a fanzine, which surprised me. I thought that there would have been more. I thought they would have had a broader fanzine, a broader fan led, because of the membership they've had, which is new.
Yeah.
You know, I think they came from a base of, I mean, when we were involved at 28,000 members, it dropped to something like, you know, I think 500 or 600, and now it's up to 14,000. It's up to 14,000 simply because of the takeover and angst that there was and over the last season, and it's built up and there's a momentum build there. But I'm surprised that not that many people who were angry about what was going on have actually then put themselves forward, because they were very much shouting from the rooftops at the time. And thankfully, we've got people like Adam who are wanting to be out there and make a difference and have the supporters' voice heard.
I mean, another thing.
I'm saying it's good to see somebody coming through,
yeah,
and putting their head above the parapet, like I said, and it's nice to see somebody different. And you know, the NUST has been, for me, and I've been part of that board, has been more or less made up of the same people for many years. There's been a lot of people in the, you know, in and around the committee. And I think, you know, a wholesale change would be good, if I'm perfectly honest. But obviously we've got a chairman who's going to be there for, I think it's at least another year. But I think, you know, progression of the trust will benefit massively with new people coming in and taking over. It's, you know, the likes of Thomas, who's involved with the MSA, the FSA, is important, but I think even he would agree that eventually, you know, time has to move on. And, you know, the original trust, which you've already pointed out, you know, involved yourselves and Bill Corkin, etc., Colin Whittle, you know, a lot of people who've been involved. I think, you know, if it's going to progress and it's going to get better, it has to go through this natural progression of an election process where new people come in. And I'm pleased to see Adam coming in and giving it the opportunity. And again, we've seen a lot of messages coming in, a lot of people saying that they voted for him or they're going to vote for him. So, you know, you got off to a good start, Adam. You must be pleased.
Oh, I'm absolutely over the moon. I mean, the outpouring of support in the last 24 hours has really been tremendous. And I think some really good points were just made. I just want to go back to a couple of them. First and foremost, I couldn't agree more that we do need to have a broader representation on the trust board. You've really all three made that point, that it has mostly been the same people. And I honestly think the trust is sort of uniquely aware of that right now for a couple of reasons. First of all, they've committed to these annual elections. There were elections last year. There are elections this year, and there will be next year. And they've also expanded the board out to 9 seats now. So I'm also surprised that only 11 people are standing. I really hoped that there would be more, and again, more people from other places. In last year's election, only about 30% of members voted, which again is far too low, in my opinion. I mean, part of the trust struggle has been true sort of participation yes. from its members, and you know, that's not to say everyone has to participate every day or in every possible situation. But if you're going to join a trust, if you're going to take the step, I know it's only £2, but you have to go ahead and do that, right? I think if you're going to do that, you should be willing to then participate, willing to have your voice heard as many different times as possible. So I think it's a two-way street. I think the trust needs to encourage participation on a far bigger scale. They need to collaborate with different types of supporters with different skill sets. They're introducing councils this year and going into next year that I think will help with that. I think there are members of the NUFC Matters family that should be involved in those councils. Some of us have very, very unique skill sets that I think could really, really help the trust. So I think there is an understanding that the trust needs to broaden its scope and use its scale, 14,000 members now, to really sort of leverage that into greater collaboration with its own members. But again, a lot of it just comes down to growth is not helpful if participation doesn't go up. There's no point in having 14,000 members if only 30% of them vote again. I want to see a board elected by more than 50% of its members, a true majority. I don't have any power in that other than amplifying the trust's message to get out and vote. I'm so happy that so many people have voted already. I think the first 2 or 3 days are crucial. The voting window, Steve, actually runs all the way through next Friday. So there is a full week. There is a full week to vote, which I think is helpful. I hope the trust reminds people to vote. I hope they send out more emails. They do more online videos, whether it's Facebook, which I'm not on, or Twitter, which obviously I am on. But again, if people want to know sort of more about my platform specifically, there are just sort of 3 big things. And I know my statement laid a lot of this out, which Steve, you read fantastically. Couldn't have said that better myself. 3 sort of main things that I want people to take away if they vote for me, or if they're considering voting for me, either with a single vote or one of their 5 votes. And one is just, again, that sort of 25 years of passion, wanting to put that into action in a way that I think can really make a difference. A lot of people can go on Twitter and have an absolute rant session. And I do that sometimes, because sometimes this club just drives me insane. So I've done that before, and it's a good outlet, but there are other ways that you can be useful with your passion. And I think the trust is one of those. The second is to represent the broader community of fans. Again, we've talked about this on this show several times. You've all 3 mentioned it today. There is an international community of Newcastle fans. And in this sort of post-COVID world, whenever we get to that post-COVID world, this international fan base will still exist, right? It is easier for us to connect now because we're, like Mitch said, we're all 3 in different time zones right now. It's barely lunchtime for me, but we're having this conversation because we can use technology, and the trust has to emphasize the use of technology in terms of getting a broader representation, and then to improve the trust. And again, I think the trust is aware of this. The trust infrastructure was really set up for about 4,000 or 5,000 members. I don't think they expected to balloon as high as they have, close to 14, probably going on to 15,000 members now. So they need to expand their infrastructure. That includes the councils, that includes obviously growing the board to 9 members, but it also includes representing those 14 or 15,000 fans with a much larger voice. And I want to be a big part of that growth, and I want to make sure that I'm sort of putting my opinions into that, trying to make the trust a better place, and actually holding the club accountable in a way that represents 14,000 voices. And I have one quick story, and I'll let you guys talk, but I have one quick story about something that's been driving me crazy since I heard about it. Andre, who's in Bulgaria, who is a member of the international community, obviously with Newcastle, but obviously a member of your panel as well, Steve, on the weekends. Yeah. He told a story a while back, at least privately. I'm not sure if he's told it on here, but he gave me permission to talk about this today. In 2019, he traveled. He went from Bulgaria all the way to Newcastle to watch a game, which he only gets to do once a year. And I sympathize with that. I'm about once a year myself. He went his one time. He took his friend who was blind, and they wanted to go to the game together and watch that game and experience it the same way. Andre reached out to the club to try and get a handheld radio for his friend, so that his friend could not only experience the atmosphere of St. James's Park, but also really understand what was going on in the game. And frankly, so that Andre didn't have to commentate for the whole game for him. So he reached out to the club to try and get a handheld radio for his friend. And the club did not reply to him. He got no response whatsoever from the club. I believe after the game, they got a one-line email from the club saying that wasn't available. I believe the trust needs to be a resource and an outlet for fans in that exact situation. The trust needs to leverage its size and scale so that fans can come to them, whether it's from Bulgaria or whether it's from 2 streets down from St. James's Park, and say, I have a request of the club, or I have an issue with the club that I want the trust to support me on. And that's what the trust should do. And frankly, it shouldn't matter whether you're a member or not. They still should represent Newcastle United fans in any sort of dispute they have with the club or any sort of service they need from the club. And I'm sure we've all got hundreds of examples of where the club has let us down as fans. But I really believe that the trust should be able to represent fans in those types of situations. I know they've supported away fans when it comes to travel coordination and things like that, but so much more can be done. And I really think that I can be a part of helping that be a big part of the trust platform going forward. And again, to the point made earlier, this is all about listening. I realize that I'm not going to every game. I'm not a season ticket holder as much as I would love to be, fingers crossed one day. But I need to be able to listen to fans, to represent our fans as best as I can to the trust and in front of the club. So listening will be the most important thing that really any board member can be able to do, and taking on feedback and then taking that to the club and holding them accountable for our fans.
It's got to be hammered home as well that anyone who takes up work with NUST does it voluntarily. And I think that's the thing that often gets forgotten, Mitch, Steve in particular. When you take this on, it's a role that you take on as well as doing your own thing in life, whether you're working as a dentist, whether you're working in print, whether you're working in promotions like I do. After a hard day's graft, whether it's been a good one or a bad one, you've got to go and, go to a meeting, somewhere in, in the Northeast and, basically sit around a table with everybody else who's been to work, and you're doing it for free. So it's the one thing I think that gets ignored, Mitch, isn't it? That stuff that Adam's doing is it's great. I mean, he's obviously international. He's going to have to tune in online, but he's going to have the added problem if he gets voted in of being in a different time zone. So he's going to have to maybe get out of bed to go to a meeting, an online meeting, and and deal with something. So it's voluntary, and I think people need to know that.
Yeah, I mean, give you an example. Last night, after we did the retro show last night, Steve and I had a Zoom call with someone, and that overran, and I didn't get done till midnight. Yeah. And it is what it is. Look, the trust, the position the trust should be in, and right now it isn't, and that's because of the years of breakdown of communication between the club and the fan base. Let's, see that. The position it should be in is the club's critical friend.
Yeah.
Should always be that. That's the number one position it should be in. But it should also be there to serve things like Adam's just mentioned. That is, be the first point of contact that says, oh, hang on, I need to find a ticket, or I need to find a way to get to such and such a game, or I need to, I need a handheld radio for a blind friend, that kind of thing. Reaching out to fan base to be able to do that's fabulous. And with a membership of 14,000, you're right, Adam, it should have a bit more clout. But it really should also be an active fan base. And I think the biggest barometer of how active that fan base is going to be how many people have voted in this election. It was a point I was going to make before you brought it up yourself, mate. And it's very, very relevant. I believe it's in the not too distant past. There had a couple of years where the votes within the trust were inquisitive, and that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be for our trust, because the fans who are members of the trust should be invested in the trust as much as anybody on the board is. And yeah, it's hard yards. I mean, good God, that's I think I mentioned it on one of the shows. The setting up the NUST and all the road shows we were doing pretty much put the final nail in my first marriage. It really was that the time dedicated there. It literally was consuming. But then we should be in a position and find a way to work with the club to see if we can look beyond the pettiness on both sides that has created. God, I sounded like Trump there. I shouldn't use that phrase. The pettiness that happened, all over once relationships broke down and everything got entrenched. There has to be a way to enable communication, but not just for those who are members of the trust, but for everybody. For everybody should be able to feel. That was why me and Steve were very keen to get Fans United going as something for people who didn't want to be a trust member. There's lots of people out there who aren't trust members, but still want to find a way to communicate. And if the trust are in a position to reach out to those freely and easily, that's a big thing. That's a huge thing. And like I say to anybody who's watching who's a trust member, if you've not voted, get voting, use your vote. Make a change, make a change, make something happen with your trust.
Yeah.
Steve, Mitch makes a valid point, doesn't he? And Adam's touched on it as well. I mean, you know, the turnout for votes, you know, in a general election aren't particularly very good when you think about how many people are actually registered to vote. So it's not completely unexpected that the same is going to happen with something like the NUST. But people can't moan and groan if the people that they want on the board aren't voted for if they're not going to use their vote.
Absolutely. As long as those people on the board are communicating with the fan base regularly, and communicating in a way that the fan and talking about the things that the fans want to talk about, you know, willing to be open about the discussions that they had. I mean, you go back to 2014 when the fans forum was reinstated, and that's why, as Mitch says, that's why we set up Fans United, because at the time the trust wanted absolutely nothing to do with communication with the football club. And we spent 18 months talking to Lee Marshall when he got the job as the fans liaison officer, saying why we thought that there needed to be dialogue between fans, because the whole communication had broken down after the relegation, when the club turned around and said, well, we don't need to talk to you anymore. And we fought and fought and fought to get that communication back in place. But the intransigence that was out there from certain quarters meant that it was never going to happen. So, as you know, Steve, we spent 18 months convincing certain people in the football club that this would be a good idea. And we put the plans forward, we put the structure in place with the club, we explained what it needed to be, and then we managed to get a fans forum in place. We did that. It fell at the first hurdle because, as far as the trust was concerned, who came along and said we need to be part of it, we all know why it fell apart. But we carried on. The rest of us, without the trust, carried on talking with the club 3 or 4 times a year. And at that point, it was virtually the only communication that was coming out of Newcastle United was what was said at the fans forum, to the point where the press were contacting you beforehand, asking you what questions you were going to be putting forward, and then desperate for the minutes to come out, so that the press then had 7 or 8 days of stuff that they could put out in print. The club said this, the club said that, get an opinion, rocking the boat, because we pitched our questions to the club in a certain way that we knew we could get answered. We knew it might not be the answers that people wanted to hear, but there were the answers to the questions, and it built up a structure. It built up an opinion of what the club's mentality was and what the club was thinking. And when we talk about the club, I'm not talking about the lads in the ticket office. I'm not talking about the fans liaison officer. I'm not talking about the stewards. I'm not talking about the people who serve the beer. What I'm talking about is I'm talking about the 3 or 4 people at the time who had the power under Mike Ashley, because they were making all the decisions on his behalf, but they were making the decisions that he wanted to have in place. So they were his yes men, and they were the people that doing, whether it was Derek Lambias, whether it was John Irvin, who ended up for a spell, or whether it was Lee Charnley when it came to security, whether it was Steve Story, whether it was to do with the state of the ground, it was Eddie Rutherford. And so it went on, whether it was the guys from the foundation who were always involved. So we kept that communication going time and time and time again. And it got to the point where, as I say, the press were desperate for the fans forum to happen. And then as soon as we got the answers, the fans forum got slagged off because it wasn't the answers.
It wasn't the answers people wanted.
Yeah, but at least it was communication. At least we were talking. At least we were in dialogue with them, you know. And then eventually the trust came back in, and we campaigned from 2014 all the way through every single meeting raised the point that the trust should be back in this room, and the club would say no. And the next meeting would raise the point the trust should be back in. The trust, and eventually, I went to a meeting with Lee Charnley face to face before the start of the season, and said to him, he said, "Do you honestly think they should be there?" And I go, "Yes, because I've been telling you for months and months and months and years that they should be back in." And he goes, "Well, we'll have a word." And then eventually the trust were invited back in, and everything was going sweetness and light and everything. We might not have heard what we wanted to hear, but at least we were hearing something. Now we don't hear anything. We hear nothing at all. The fans forum was basically disbanded at the start of last season. And what we had was we ended up with what are now focus groups on 4 topics. And the reason it got disbanded was because Lee Charnley got sick to death of us asking questions about how he was running the football club and what was going on with team selection, what was going on with the management, etc., etc., etc. And certain people in the fan base felt as though, yeah, we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about other things. So it went out, it was gone. And now we talk about ticketing. We talk about inclusion. We talk about, I can't even remember the other 2 because it was what we talk about are the 4 topics that we hit on under any other business. And that for me was where the whole thing died. And then, be perfectly honest, on those 4 meetings, the last, and we've only met once on each topic. Foundation's another one. On the 4 topics, we've met once. It was December the 16th. I think it was the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. So it was 4 meetings in 4 days with different people. Nobody from the management of the football club there, just people from the ticket office, just people from the foundation, just people from the inclusion team, like Lucy Oliver, etc. None of the executives, and we didn't even get minutes of them. I'm still waiting for the minutes now for some of those meetings. And for me, it just died a death. It was just lost in the whole sort of ether of couldn't care lessness. And I remember coming out of the meeting I think it was on the 17th, and there was a roadshow or a whatever you want to call it that the Chronicle was running in one of the pubs in town, and I went to it and I sat and listened to the talk, and then I chatted to some of the press, and the press were going, "Oh, you've been to the fans forum?" I goes, "No, I haven't been to the fans forum meeting. I've been to one of these like sort of little focus group meetings." And they goes, "What was said?" And I goes, "Well, I tell you what was said was nothing that you'll write a headline about, because you lot hung on the back of the fans forum for years, writing column inches, and you'll get nothing in return. You're now going to have nothing. You're going to have none of the interest. You're now going to have to work, Mr. Press guys, for your money." And have we heard anything since? Have we heard any special? Have we heard fans questioning and any feedback from the club? Have we heard the club being pinned to the floor and asked questions? And there were some great lads, and some of the lads who are on the fans forum are now part of NUFC and are up for election as well. And they know what I'm talking about. And you know what? It just got ripped apart. And it got ripped apart. I don't know why that certain people voted for it and wanted that facility rather than the facility we had, but that's what we ended up with. And for me, it's all well and good, the likes of Adam and the rest of them coming in and saying they're going to get this and they're going to ask for that and they want better communication. But under the current structure, I very much doubt they will get anywhere near the type of communication that they think they're going to get. And that's the nub of the whole issue with Newcastle United and how they communicate with fans. The less that they need to say, the better. And you cannot get blood out of a stone. And Newcastle United are the epitome of the stone.
Yeah, hopefully a takeover will see an end to all of that. So that's what we're all praying for. And, you know, you've got to hope that if Adam does get elected, that he's going to be going into a trust which is going to be, you know, in a good place, but also in a, you know, hopefully going to be liaising with some new people and people who want to take the club forward rather than that it stagnates. So we've got to hope that that's the case. John asks, Adam, how did you end up as an expat in the USA?
Yeah, so I was born in London. I grew up in Oxfordshire and Berkshire, and I moved to the States when I was 18, originally to play football. I came over here to attend university. I had a scholarship. I was very, very lucky. So I came over to play football. That was in 2004. And candidly, I just came for a bit of fun. It was like an extended gap year for me. I didn't have too many big plans at 18. All I really cared about was football at the time. And I met my now wife. We just celebrated our 11-year wedding anniversary in July. We have 2 beautiful children. So we've just made a life of it. We lived in Indiana originally, which is right in the middle of the country. And then in 2016, we moved up here to Minnesota, which is about as close to Canada as you can get without being in Canada. So it is a different life over here. You know, it was talked about earlier, being an international fan. You really don't get perspective of that until you are one. And for a long time when I lived here, there wasn't live Premier League games. You didn't get, obviously, Twitter and Facebook and things like that. So it was really, really difficult to feel connected to the club in any way, shape or form. Fortunately, that's changed amazingly, and in some ways the world has got a lot flatter thanks to technology. And I wanted to make a point about this $14.95 that you guys are going to have to pay or not pay probably to watch the game next weekend. You know, over here in the States, NBC is the major sporting broadcaster. You know, they bought Premier League rights 4 or 5 years ago, and every year they've sort of increased accessibility to those games. It used to be the first couple of years that they'd show, you know, maybe a game on Saturday and a game on Sunday. Now you can pay $4 a month, which is nothing, and you get every single Premier League game live. And there's a Premier League channel that runs 24/7. We get 2 hours of Sky Sports News most days shown on NBC. So it really, really does connect you so much more to the club. And again, $4 a month is absolutely nothing to watch 38 Newcastle games. And of course, I get to watch every other game as well if I choose to. So I feel so sorry for fans back home, given the current situation. And really, COVID has just accelerated this problem, right? That we were running towards this problem where money was going to win over fans. I don't know whether it would have been a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, but we've been running towards the edge of this money cliff with the Premier League for so long that, you know, really we could all see it coming. And again, COVID has just expanded that or accelerated that process. And I feel so sorry for Newcastle fans, whether you are, like I said, in the city of Newcastle, or whether you're like Nathan, you live in Burnley, or whether you're like all the fans that represent the NUFC team on the weekends that are all around the country. It's just so difficult to be a football fan right now.
Yeah, it is. Before I come to that question that Steve asked, I do want to point out, whilst we've still got over 370 people watching, there's no football this weekend, but we will be back tomorrow afternoon at 12:30. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, Jab, Q-Tech and Cross Paths. We're going to do Newcastle United versus Manchester United, the 5-0 win. It's a match day live with a bit of a twist. It's a retro game. I will post the link on the actual description tomorrow afternoon. So you'll join us live. We'll be on live. And then when we give you the go-ahead, you'll be able to click the link and it'll open up another window of YouTube. And we'll all be able to watch the Newcastle 5-0 win together. We'll do a little bit of commentary on it. We'll talk about the good old days with Shearer, Ferdinand, Keegan, and everybody else. So that's tomorrow, 12:30. If you're doing nothing, we've put it on at 12:30, essentially, because there's a few non-league games going on, Dunstan being one, so I'm going to be there. So yeah, 12:30, we'll watch the game all the way through. just to pass the time, and we couldn't think of a better one really to watch than that. So that will be tomorrow, and you don't have to pay $14.95 for it either. You can watch it for free. Happy days. Go, Steve, go.
I was just going to say, while you're talking non-league, can I just say it was good to hear. I bumped into somebody when I was out walking the dog earlier who said that Mick Edmondson's doing quite well now, and he's going to be getting back to watching Heaton stand not very long. So that was good news, because most people know Mick from the back page, and he hasn't been very well lately. He suffered from COVID, but that was great news to hear today. And secondly, just going back to something that Adam said, Stevie's from Minnesota. So no doubt your dad will be on the phone to you shortly going, has he ever been to Duluth? Because that's where Bob Dylan was born.
Correct.
I have been.
Correct. That's good stuff. Good to hear about Mick. Yeah, and I did see a tweet from the other day. He's already been back down to his non-league haunt. Yeah. So good to see him back on his feet. Daniel says, I just want to say thank you to the three amigos. I'm going through a hard time, but you lads have been here every Friday cheering me up. Thanks. Love from Norway. Daniel, keep your head up, son. And thanks very much for your kind words. We're glad that we've been a little bit of help and a little bit of solace for you. Will says, Adam, I've just voted in the secret ballot. Wink, wink. Mark says he'd pay $14.95 to watch the 5-0. There must be a new tweet from Money Mike Ashley. I'm sure we can find that before the end of the programme and get that up. John from QTech says, are you taking score predictions for tomorrow's retro game? Yeah. If you want, mate, if you want, it's a good idea. Steve Bennett.
Stu will probably have 3-1 on.
Yeah, probably will I. How did you become a Newcastle fan? Steve Bennett asked Adam.
Well, so when I was 9 or 10, I think 10, my parents bought me Sabutio, which I don't know if that's still around these days. But when I was 10, Sabutio was the greatest thing in the world. I had everything. I had the stands. I had all the different cups you could buy. But the reason I became a Newcastle fan is that after the blue team and the red team, which I think came with the original set, my parents also bought me the black and white team. It wasn't, at that time, they didn't name the teams. They would just buy colors. So I had the red team, the blue team, and the black and white team. And anytime I played against my friends, when I was the black and white team, I tended to win. So I sought out a black and white team and, of course, ran into Newcastle. So I was very, very fortunate because that was, I think, 1995. So by 96 and, of course, 97, Newcastle were the entertainers, and they were buying players like Les Ferdinand and David Ginola and Alan Shearer, and we had Peter Beardsley, and things took off from there. But you know, in some ways, I was very, very fortunate that I picked Newcastle United and Notts County, which was the other option, I think, back then for a black and white team. Mate, so
you're sure comes from a family of money, this lad, you can tell, because we had to paint the black and white stripes on our kit. When we were kids, we couldn't afford to buy the Newcastle United team. We had to paint them.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky. And you know, it's been 25 amazing years. I keep having to remind myself that 25 is not that long, you know. I mean, compared to some of the fans that I hear about, and obviously you guys that are on this show every week have been fans for a lot longer than that. But we have seen some amazing things in 25 years. We've come so close to winning it all, either the FA Cup final runs or obviously the Premier League in those 2 years that we finished second. So I just really hope that I'm not 25 years into this and the club is going to continue on the path it's on. I don't believe it is. If I had been on earlier, I would have voted yes to the takeover question as well. I really do believe there is going to be a takeover of this club, and we are either at the beginning of the end for Mike Ashley or somewhere in the middle of the end for Mike Ashley's tenure. And I certainly do hope that if I make it onto the board and that runs the full 3 years, as the term does, that I spend most of those 3 years working with a club owned by someone other than Mike Ashley.
Yeah.
The Money Mike Ashley tweet is very simple. It says, by the way, the reason we agreed for the high price on pay-per-view is to piss the fans off so you can put pressure on the government to open up stadiums so we can make even more money. We all agreed it was a great idea, except Leicester. and it will work. So that's from Money Mike Ashley. As always, he's always on the money. And good stuff. You know, good to see him still tweeting. Lovely story from Adam, says Andrew Malloy. Tom sharing his Sabutio memories. He says, I remember buying the Newcastle Sabutio team in Phoenix early 90s with the thick and thin stripes and the blue flashes on the shorts. Tim Kern says, I painted mine also. Dave Harrison, you're right. Premier League Corrupt is trending on Twitter along with IPTV, amongst other illegal stream providers. The vote to put pressure on missed Leicester because of their local lockdown. Keith says, great show, lads. Thanks. Need to go and take the dog out. Good luck. Adam, just to lighten the mood a little bit, lads. I'm sure you'll have seen this on Twitter, but this made a lot of people laugh. And anybody wondering? Yeah.
There you go.
It is uncanny, that likeness, by the way, isn't it? Absolutely superb.
Amazing.
Absolutely
Amazing.
Superb. Yeah. So well done to the person who discovered that pie in the Weatherby Whaler, I presume. Fantastic. Miggy as well. A lot of people just talking about that horrendous challenge, Adam, last night, wasn't it? Horrendous challenge.
Oh, it was really terrible. And actually, what was funny is I was looking at Twitter last night while that game was being played, and it was actually Kendall from this community that tweeted out how bad that was. And I thought to myself, why on earth is Kendall watching this game right now? It must be about 2 o'clock in the morning for her. So kudos for her for keeping up on Miggy while he's on international break. But yeah, I did see today that he was actually taken off as more of a precaution with a slightly tight thigh. I don't think he was substituted because of that tackle, which alone should have been a red card. So the good news is I don't think his injury is serious at all, because we know we are going to need him. I think he's playing a bit part role right now, but obviously with the season as compact as it's going to be, and hopefully 2 cup runs, we are definitely going to need Miggy, even if he's not in the first team right now. I think he will be soon, and he's such a vital part of everything that we do going forward when he's on the pitch.
Yeah. Lads, Miggy he hasn't had the greatest of starts, has he, Mitch? But no. He didn't deserve that last night.
It was
a smile on his face.
I mean that was a proper, do that to somebody in the street, you'd be banged up for 18 months. It really was one of those. It was just shocker. And then to see the lad only get a yellow as well. I know that's sometimes a bit laissez-faire with the interpretations of challenges in South American football, but that was just crackers. And he surely has got a role to play going forward, because as Adam says, the games are going to come thick and fast. Our squad is better, but it still doesn't have the depth we'd all like. And so he's surely going to get a chance at some stage to stake a claim, and it's up to him, which this is a bit of an old-fashioned attitude, it's up to him to claim the shirt and then keep it and say, right, drop us. If he's that up for it, drop us. He seems to have been a little bit short of something at times, but at other times he's made a difference when he's come on. So you just hope he comes back and this injury isn't as bad as it sounds. I know one of the South American correspondents on Twitter was saying it wasn't as bad an injury as they thought, and he should be okay for the next game. But you never really know until you get the player back, I guess. Yeah. And that then brings the point of why they're all playing these international friendlies.
Mental.
In the middle of lockdown. What's the point?
It's crazy.
What was the point of that England-Wales game? Just why?
Ludicrous.
I mean, at least that didn't involve a lot of travel. But 3 of the squad managed to get themselves taken out of the squad because they broke the bloody rules on went to somebody's bloody party or something like that, which is just stupid. It's crazy that they're putting all this extra stuff in that involves potential, international travel. When, as Adam would know, the situation in the NFL, you're seeing COVID shut training grounds and postpone games and put games in doubt, and soon it's going to be at a point where the league season is going to be in question if they start to lose any more. Why risk it? Why even introduce that as a potential factor? Because all it's going to take is one One case to come back and be asymptomatic, and then suddenly you've got 5 or 6 in a squad testing, and then they're going to have another problem on their hands about how to fit more games in. Or, I mean, even Tottenham. If you look at Tottenham, they've been playing like Tuesday, Sunday, Tuesday, Saturday. That's crazy. What a crazy schedule. You know, it's so sticking these extra games in for nothing. Yes, the European Championship games and the qualifiers. Yes, absolutely. But why play the others? That just doesn't make sense.
Big shout out to David Moyes, who joins us every Friday. He says, Almiron's underappreciated. I have a feeling Jamal Lewis will be a revelation, and I don't mind working from my living room if that can keep West Ham playing like a prime Barca. So big thanks to David for his input, as always, and also for making Sunderland's life a misery when he was there. David Crone says, Boris is going to pay 2/3 of my next furlough. Can he pay 2/3 of that £15? I'm just asking. Colin says, wait till everyone gets together for the £14.95 games. Yeah,
absolutely.
You're not wrong. And Chris says, can't cancel the games. The Premier League might lose money. Rich says 3 international games within a week is scandalous, especially with a hectic domestic schedule. I've got no idea what the hell they're thinking of. As Mitch said, what the hell they were playing at. Keith Murray, thanks for becoming a new member. Steve Bennett, thanks for becoming a business member. And there was somebody else, B. Taylor. Thank you for becoming a member as well. I think you're just renewing your membership, B. Taylor. But that's it's very kind of you to do that. It does help us with the streaming costs. We haven't got obviously a game to look forward to this weekend. What we have got is Liam Kennedy, who's been doing a little bit of homework, lads. And I'm sure you'll have some opinions on this. This one, we've got managers under Ashley. We're missing Shearer off that poster. Actually, I've just realised. But yeah, we've got a few on there. We've got Kevin Keegan, Rafa Benitez, Chris Hughton, Steve McLaren, Sam Allardyce, albeit briefly, Alan Pardew, John Carver, the best coach in the world, Joe Kinnear, and of course Brucey. The big question we're going to put on our Facebook page at the weekend is, who was the best manager and who was the worst manager under Mike Ashley? So get on our Facebook page. You'll be able to vote on that on Sunday afternoon. We're going to do the show 3 till 4. Liam's going to go through all the runners and riders and give us a comprehensive look at their careers, the statistics, and going to be interesting to see. We came up with this idea a couple of weeks ago. And that was when Bruce was getting a little bit of pressure, but now we're in the top 10. We're in the quarterfinals of the League Cup. It'll be interesting to see what people's real view is on Steve Bruce, because it does seem to change. We want to finish the show, Adam, by just asking all three of you. Obviously, international break. What's your feeling so far with the football side of things?
Oh, what a question that is. Depends on which game you've watched most recently. We've obviously had the highs and lows again this season, like we seem to have every season. It's almost like a week-to-week roller coaster, isn't it? Being a Newcastle fan. Overall, in aggregate, I wouldn't say the football has necessarily been that much better than last season, but there has been an improvement, albeit slight. I think that probably the most important thing that we have going for us now is a legitimate and lethal striker. Having Callum Wilson in that lineup is just so important for Newcastle. He's four goals in 4 starts plus a sub appearance. Just brilliant. I know 2 of them were penalties, but truly a good goal scorer, and he helps everybody out. I mean, he makes Alan St-Maximin more consistent. He makes John Joe Shelby better. He makes Ryan Fraser or whoever's on the other wing that much better, knowing that when they put the ball in the box, there's a good chance that Wilson will score. So the football itself, overall, not that much better. The results have been inconsistent, but we're ahead of the game right now in the top 10, like you said, in the quarterfinals of a cup. So if you had offered me, and I think you did actually, I think in one of the earlier shows I did with you, we talked about what Newcastle will have done by the first international break. Where will they be in the first international break? And I don't think anyone on the panel that day said we would be in the top 10 and in the quarterfinals of a cup. So just based on where we are in the table we should probably be pretty happy. But as always with Newcastle, there's still a churning in my stomach about the fact that we've lowered our expectations of being happy where we are right now. So we'll see what the next few games bring us. But the tough schedule starts now. We've had a relatively easy or relatively opportunistic first 4 or 5 games of the season. So we'll see where we are in another 4 or 5 games. But I think for now, we should probably be quite happy.
Steve, end of phase 1 into the international break. How do you think we've done?
Yeah, my 20 pence mix-up is basically all just white mice, isn't it? You know, the one thing that you didn't want in a 20 pence mix-up, that and a shrimp, because they were horrible.
I like the white mice.
Did you? Oh, no.
Especially the big ones.
No, they were always little in a 20 pence mix-up.
You've always been strange, you.
Yeah, yeah, you have. Then you got those horrible shrimpy things as well that like just...
I like them.
They didn't taste of anything, you know. And then somebody would throw a couple of dolly mixtures in as well because like they were small and they could hide in the corner of the packet. Getting back to football, you know what? It's just I haven't seen anything exciting. I haven't seen nothing that's like sort of attracted us back to sort of, you know, what we can do. I'm not seeing anything tactical. I'm not seeing anything enthralling. I'm not seeing performances where you're putting like, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes of pressure on where you look like a team in the ascendancy. I'm not seeing any of that. I'm seeing a team going through the motions, but I'm also seeing that in every game I'm watching on Match of the Day or every game I'm watching on some iffy box or on Sky or on BT, because none of the teams and this situation of like the crazy results that were had at the weekend, you know what I mean? And everybody's going, oh, it's been a disaster for Liverpool. They got beat 7-2 and Liverpool are going down the pan. They're never going to win the league again. You went, at least 3 or 4 of those goals were ridiculous deflections that in any normal game would have got, you know, just wouldn't have happened. And then you had the Man United one where you had England's #1 centre half who makes Rick after Rick after Rick in 5 seconds or less and gives goals away. And that sums up the league, you know, because it's just like we're all over the place. And we laughed, didn't we? We laughed last season at the end when we came back on Project Restart and we'd seen the Germans start this situation off before us. And we saw away teams and we saw the results from away teams who didn't seem to be playing under pressure and home teams like capitulating and some ridiculous results. And we laughed and we saw a little bit of that. I mean, our game against Bournemouth, for example, you know, where we absolutely ripped them apart. And everybody went, oh, it's a one-off. And then this season, it's like teams are just not bothered. Do we have professional footballers on 150, 200,000 pounds a week that can only be motivated by the cheering of a crowd? You know, is it the crowd that our support is so important that it motivates a footballer? And is that why the Premier League now want us all to be back in? Because Man United are getting beaten, Liverpool are getting beat, Man City are getting hammered, you know, at home, you know, 5-1. And of Leicester, and I put something on Twitter and it was like, we beat West Ham, who then beat somebody, who then beat somebody else, and it rattled through, and then it ended up with the West Ham result again, you know. And it's like a round robin, and there's no cohesiveness, there's no structure to the football we're watching. We're watching Chelsea play good one week and getting hammered the next. We're watching. Well, the only thing that's like steady seems to be Fulham getting beat. You know what I mean? And Sheffield United, and that's not Sheffield United getting beat is a continuation of what we saw after the lock-in, after we were released again. You know, it's like, I mean, that's why Stewie puts 3-1 all the time, because eventually it's going to crack. You know, type of thing.
Yeah.
As far as Newcastle are concerned, they turn up, we don't know what they're going to play, and then we go good game, bad game. In fact, we don't even do that. We just go 3 points, not 3 points.
Yeah, right. No, love a hasty rant. Love it, says Simon Davies. So you got 2 tonight. Mitch, how do you sum up those opening games? We're in the quarterfinals of the Cup.
Aye. There's how many licorice torpedoes and they mix up mine. I'll be interested to see what metrics Liam comes up with to talk about success. Because, like I've said, we can view this 2 ways, and this is part of the problem at the minute. Sorry, I just had somebody trying to call us.
No worries.
You can view it in 2 ways. You can look at it on results-based business, as I've said many a time. If we were to win the League Cup, they won't write on it winners Newcastle United brackets, but they nearly lost on penalties to Newport. Doesn't happen. That doesn't go down in the history books. Same with the league results. They don't say, but they scraped a point because the keeper played a blinder and they got a last-minute penalty. Doesn't get written down. It's about results. And if you look at results and look at where we are, there's reason for people to say that they are happy with that. However, like we've said about the fan base that we have, the level of football intelligence in there says we know what we're looking at with our eyes. We know what we're looking at with our eyes.
Completely agree.
And we can see where the house of cards could come crashing down at any moment, be that through an injury at the wrong position or just we get affected by this whole apathy that seems to go through some of the squads. I genuinely think it's almost like watching training games still. And in training games and in friendlies, you get weird results. And that's what we're seeing now. And like Steve says rightly, is that what it really needs to get bloody people on 100 grand a week motivated? And if so, that's outrageous.
All very valid points, lads. All very valid points. We've reached the end of the show tonight. It's been a cracker, as always. Darren Baldwin Funerals, thanks very much, mate, for your sponsorship. As always, giving you a shout out, and to QTech. shop.co.uk. Don't forget, if you've missed any of the shows, you can watch them back on YouTube, or you can tune in to iTunes or Spotify if you're out and about walking the dog or cat. You can listen to us warble on those particular platforms, which is always worth a listen. T-shirts, people keep asking for the link. There you go, newcastlelegends.com. We don't have the club badge on because we'll get sued. Some people are asking if we could have put the club badge on, like the one I've got. That was sent as a one-off gift from the lads at QTech, but it does have NUFC Matters in the corner above the blue star, and a lot of people are very happy. They've received them all, and that's a big thanks to John for doing that. And don't forget, another couple of tickets have just gone for the Lee Clark Christmas Bash, NUFC Matters Christmas Night Out, Friday the 4th of December, Tyneside Irish Centre, in aid of the Newcastle Food Bank. I'll be hosting it. Lee Clark will be doing a Q&A with me. There'll be people there from all corners. Gibbo and Supermac, COVID pending, will be there, along with some of the guys and girls who you see on all the shows. So newcastlelegends.com if you want to buy your tickets for that. And Adam, final word to you, mate. Speak to your public. You seem to have gone down well. A lot of people have said they've already voted for you tonight, which is great. But last chance to put something out there before a week of voting starts.
Yeah, I mean, just again, a massive thank you to everybody who's voted already. If you haven't voted yet, please do check your email. Get on there and do that. Use your voice, right? You get the chance to vote in a truly democratic situation. So please vote, whether it's for me or whether it's for somebody else. I think everyone needs to exercise their right to vote in this election so that we can have a better trust to represent everyone there. If you do want to vote for me, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. Hopefully I'll get on the board and I can put this passion and this energy to the best use possible. So thank you again, obviously, to this family and this community. It means a lot to me.
Good luck, Adam. Don't forget, guys, we will be back tomorrow afternoon at the very early time of 12:30. As I've already said, we'll be doing Match Day Live. It's a retro special. Newcastle United 5, Manchester United 0. And I am looking forward to watching that because I haven't watched it back since the very day that I was at St James's Park on that cold October day. So looking forward to that. I do want to dedicate the show to a man who would have been 80 today. God bless John Lennon, absolute legend, and somebody who was a big influence on me as a kid, somebody who I aspired to be, not as a musician, but as a person. And love to dedicate the show to John Lennon today. So a working class hero he certainly was. Lads, thanks very much for joining us. Been a cracking show. Look forward to seeing you again on Friday, and of course for the retro show on Thursday. And Adam, hopefully you'll be able to join us at some point tomorrow for the retro special. Until then, take care, lads. Good night. God bless.
Cheers, everyone.